Welcome to the Rentvesting Podcast, the official podcast of rentvesting.com.au, which will be launching a little later this month. The show is going to focus on investment and showcase how you can rethink what home ownership means for you as the market is continuing to reinvent itself, and how rentvesting redefines how you can build the largest asset base that you can with the money that you can afford. On today's episode, we look at how the property management industry is reinventing itself as we talk to the co-founder of cubby.com.au. So, let's get to it. Michael, hi. Thank you very much for joining us on the Rentvesting Podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Hello, Peter. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Not too bad at all. So, for our listeners, tell us what you're doing in the marketplace and how you're disrupting the property industry.
Yeah, sure. My brother and I, we've created this online platform that landlords and tenants can rent property without having to use a traditional real estate agency.
Okay. So, how did this come together? Was this a light bulb moment, or was this on the back of a napkin over a couple of beers one afternoon, or?
No, it came about through a basically long time because I've been in real estate myself for started about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I started as a salesperson, and then within a couple of years I moved over to the dark side, property management, as some would say. And once I had no experience at all. I was trying to manage about 180 properties, and I was just working as hard as I possibly can. And after talking to many, many landlords, going from one agent to another, I just felt like they weren't typically happy with the way that I was treated.
Is it the way that you treat it, or is it because the industry by nature seems to be pretty transient? And I only say that from my own experiences of property managers that I've had, and through the course of a 6 or a 12-month engagement, there seems to be 3 or 4 different people that are actually managing the property. There seems to be no consistency in an agency model. Yeah,
I think there's various things. Like every landlord that you speak to, I reckon, has different issues that they've had.
Different grievances, yeah.
Yeah, I can't put it down to one thing. To boil it down, you could say that if they would say they're paying high fees and they just don't feel like they're getting the value for it. They're just getting poor experience for the fees that they're paying. So yeah. I think that's really what it sort of boils down to. And look, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of great real estate agents out there.
Absolutely.
And I've learnt from some of the best.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that, at the moment, as a landlord, you've got 2 options to rent your property. You've either got to use a real estate agent, or you can do it yourself. Mm-hmm. There's no other options in the marketplace. And that's where Cubby comes in. Cubby comes in and just gives someone an extra option, an extra way to rent their property.
Okay. So tell us about cubby.com.au. What's it all about, and how have you actually brought disruption into the property management space?
So it's an online platform that now empowers the landlords and tenants to rent a property online. So what we're doing is we're connecting both the landlord and the tenant to rent their property from start to finish. So not just advertising a property, and not just collecting rent, but everything else in between.
Okay. So if I'm a user, what's my experience directly? If I'm a landlord,
yep.
What's my journey? What do I do?
Yep. So jump onto our website, cubby.com.au. You can sign up. Let's say most tenants, most landlords need to find a tenant. So one of the first things they're looking to do is advertise. You can advertise your property on realestate.com and Domain.
Okay.
so you have to be a licensed real estate agent to advertise on realestate.com, and
Right.
we are a licensed real estate agency.
Okay.
So you can advertise your property, and you can, your tenants can apply for the property online. You can screen your tenants. You can check tenants on the National Tenancy Database. You can sign a lease with Cubby, and you can also collect your rent through Cubby on direct debit. So we're really providing a lot of the services that a real estate agent does, but we're doing that online.
Yes. Okay. And the physical inspection of a property, how would that work out for myself as a landlord?
At the moment, the way that it works is that the landlord has to do that. So the landlord has to do their own, show tenants through their own condition report and their own routine inspections. So at the moment, the physical sense, a landlord needs to do that. But what we're actually moving into is like a agents on demand type model, where you can actually hire someone to go out there and do that inspection for you. So we've sort of realised over the last couple of years with Cubby is that a lot of landlords want to use Cubby, but some of them go, what happens if I go away? What happens if my job takes me away somewhere, I'm on holidays and a tenant moves out? Then they want to be able to have that peace of mind that they can have someone to go out to the property physically and carry that inspection out. So that's where that sort of comes into play.
Okay, so call someone off the bench and know that they're vetted to look after your asset at the end of the day, which makes it easier, I guess, for any landlord. Yeah,
exactly right. We're really trying to bridge that gap between for Cubby right now, we're really trying to bridge that gap between sort of doing it yourself and also being as close as we possibly can to the services that an actual real estate agent does provide every day.
Yeah, and I don't know, you know the industry better than what I do, but I've always paid 7 to 8% for my property management, and I don't know if I've got 7 to 8% worth of value, considering that's a weekly management fee, and I know that they're probably only checking the property quarterly, and there's always been some kind of hiccup that's gone along the way as well, or there's been mismanagement. So I can certainly feel that landlords have grievances with property managers because of that lackluster approach, and the value might not be there, but it's also very relevant for what you said, because people do want someone else to also look after the property because they may not be physically present perhaps, or they may be in a different location, or they might be rentvesting and live down in Sydney and own something in Adelaide and can't actually get to the property. So it's great that you've actually given the platform for people to take a lot of that onus on themselves and still have the capability to offer flexibility. Yeah,
and I think to be fair to real estate agents, a lot of them there's a select few that do a really great job, but unfortunately, I believe there's a lot of manual handling as a property manager.
There would be,
and that's one of the reasons why things fail. Because if you're one person, you're trying to manage 180 properties.
It's too much.
There's always things that you're just going to forget, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And because even your reminders, you have to physically enter these things in for a reminder to come up when the time's right, and then you physically have to go and take the action. And when you've got 180 properties or so, it's tough sometimes. And that's where Cubby can really come to the front, where it's automatically done. Because everything else is done on Cubby, so the lease, all the rent's paid on Cubby, it automatically gets tracked. Everything happens automatically. You don't forget to do these things. And I think as well as just consumer behaviour with the likes of Airbnb and Uber, people are wanting things now, instant,
yes,
and they want it done cheaper. And that's where it really sort of paves the way for Cubby.
And I think another thing in why I use Airbnb or why I use Uber, for example, is because there's accountability in there as well on both behalves. If I'm a bad customer because I'm being, a dick, well, then I deserve a bad rating.
Exactly.
So there's that accountability and responsibility factor to keep people in check.
Yep.
And
it's even with Cubbing, what we're doing with that, because we realise that, and we really want to provide a good experience for not just the landlord but also the tenant.
Yes.
So we believe in reviews for the tenant, but also for the actual landlord as well.
Okay. So through those reviews, then, are you seeing any commonality of where people are going wrong on either side of the fence? From a tenant's perspective, perhaps what did they do wrong? And from a landlord's perspective, what are you seeing in terms of some of the mistakes that they are actually making for a more seamless transaction to actually transpire at the end of the day?
I think that it really just, I think it's people or landlords not understanding the rules around managing their property and the processes that they need to take.
Right.
Let's give you an example. A rent increase. In most states, let's say Victoria, because that's where I am, you need to give 60 days notice for a rent increase. You need to allow enough days for postage, and you have to send it by registered post. So I think these sort of instances where the landlord just, because if they don't understand the need to do these things, they don't do it, and the tenant feels like they're being cheated in some way.
Right.
So I think it just, in Australia, the legislation is pretty strict, and is pretty specific in a lot of things, and you need to follow all these procedures. And if you don't follow them correctly, then they're void. For example, if you don't give the notice, the 60 days notice, to increase the rent, then that notice is, essentially void.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to send it again. And tenants don't like that. So I think it revolves around just knowing the correct procedures, and that's where Cubby comes in, and just providing the actual procedures and doing these notices on behalf of the landlord.
Right.
So they don't need to.
Right. So do you provide training or anything along those lines? If I was to put my own property onto Cubby, do you give any guidance or?
Yeah. So you can call us up, and you can speak to a licensed real estate agent anytime. So if you need advice with, let's just say, a good example would be screening an application. You can check your tenant on the National Tenancy Database, but sometimes you've got a couple of applications, and you just want to talk to someone who's got experience about who would be the best person to put in your property. And I think those little things can really go a long way.
Okay, cool. And where's the market heading, in your opinion, then, Michael, with different things that are now starting to emerge? As a mortgage broker myself, in the last 12 months, seen a number of different online enterprises starting to emerge to disrupt the mortgage broking space, and property seems to be this big beast that people are wanting to shake up as well. So what do you foresee actually happening?
Well, I sort of touched on it before with the Uber and Airbnb and people wanting less for more and wanting things done instantly. So I think that's sort of one thing as a general consumer behaviour.
Yeah.
And people are really adapting to technology now. Jason and I started this started Cubby about a bit over 3 years ago now. And, people at the beginning, it was hard to explain what Cubby is. Nowadays, people understand instantly. They just understand, yep, I understand exactly what that is. You don't need to explain it anymore. So I think people are really coming around with the technology. The other thing I've noticed is lifestyle choices in terms of tenants. they're renting based on their lifestyle. So they want to live somewhere, and instead of buying, they'll rent there instead. So that's definitely something that's happening. And I think that goes with lease lengths too. From a rental market perspective, we're seeing a lot more different lease lengths. So not your typical 6 months, 12 months. You can have shorter or longer. So I think we're seeing a bit more flexibility around that.
Okay, that's good to know. So how do people find out more about Cubby? Where do we go? How do we sign up?
Yep, thank you, Pete. Go
trying to give you a plug here, so.
No, I appreciate that. Go to cubby.com.au, and if you need to, or if you'd like to get into contact with me directly, you can send me an email at michael@cubby.com.au.
That's great. And I've also played on your Landlord Academy as well. And I think that's an excellent educational tool that Cubby have put together to help people out. From that educational process that you had alluded to earlier. So it's great that you've got someone that you can actually speak to, and it's great that you've got that resource there as well to add an additional hand to people as well. So I think you're definitely onto something, Michael. So well done to you and Jason for putting this together.
Thanks, Peter.
No problem. It's great to have you on the show. Thanks for being our first guest on the Rentvesting podcast, and I'm sure we'll chat again.
Sounds good, Peter. Good on you.
All the best. Thanks, Michael. Bye.
You too. Cheers. Bye.
That concludes the first episode of the Rentvesting podcast. Thanks for listening in, and be sure to subscribe not to miss out on any future episodes. Rentvesting.com.au will be going live in the coming weeks, and we have many more exciting announcements to make. But look, until next time, bye-bye.